You know the feeling. Your phone is right there. The banking app is 2 taps away, and you haven't opened it in 11 days. It's not that you forgot. You didn't forget. It's sitting there in the back of your mind, actually. This low-level awareness that you probably should check, that there were a few purchases last week you didn't really plan for, that the end of the month is coming, and you're not entirely sure what's in there. But you don't open it. You open everything else. Social media, news, emails, weather. You check your phone 40 times before noon. But that one app, the one that would take 11 seconds to open and give you a completely clear picture of exactly where you stand, stays closed. And here's what makes this so interesting. The people who do this aren't reckless. They're not indifferent to money. If anything, they think about money constantly. They worry about it. They feel it as this ambient pressure that follows them through the day. They just can't bring themselves to look directly at it. That gap between the anxiety and the avoidance is what this video is about. Because what's happening there is not laziness. It's not irresponsibility. It's something much more human than that. And once you understand what it actually is, the whole pattern starts to make a different kind of sense. The way most financial advice frames this behavior is as a discipline problem. You're avoiding your bank account because you lack financial responsibility. The solution, apparently, is to simply be more responsible. Check your account daily. Face the numbers. Be an adult about it. And if you've ever tried to follow that advice through willpower alone, you already know how well it works. You check it for 3 days in a row, feel vaguely anxious each time, and then quietly stop again. Because the advice is treating the symptom. It's not touching what's actually underneath. What's underneath is not laziness. What's underneath is a very specific kind of psychological protection, and it's one of the most documented responses the human brain has to perceived threat. Here's the reframe that matters. Financial avoidance is not the absence of caring about money. It is the direct result of caring about money too much, in a context where looking feels more dangerous than not looking. Think about what checking your bank account actually means emotionally for someone in this pattern. It's not just a number. It's a verdict. It's confirmation of whether you're doing okay or not, whether you're on track or falling behind, whether the anxiety you've been carrying is justified. And some part of the brain has decided that as long as you don't look, the verdict hasn't come in yet. The uncertainty, as uncomfortable as it is, feels safer than the potential reality. That's not irresponsibility. That's a protection mechanism. And it makes complete psychological sense, even as it quietly makes everything worse. There's a concept in psychology called the ostrich effect. It was named after the popular myth of ostriches burying their heads in the sand when threatened. The research behind it shows that people consistently consume less information about their financial situation when they expect that information to be negative. When markets are falling, people check their investment accounts less often. When they suspect they've overspent, they avoid their bank balance. When debt is growing, the statements go unopened. The brain isn't broken when it does this. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do, minimizing perceived pain in the short term. The problem is that financial reality doesn't stop existing because you stop looking at it. The balance doesn't improve because you didn't check it. The bill doesn't shrink because you left it in the envelope. All the avoidance does is remove your ability to respond to what's actually happening. And the longer the avoidance goes on, the worse the anxiety gets. Because now you're not just worried about the number. You're worried about how bad the number might be after all the time you spent not looking. The uncertainty compounds. The dread deepens. The account stays closed. There's also something happening at the identity level that makes this pattern particularly sticky. For a lot of people, their financial situation isn't just data. It's tied to their sense of self-worth. If the number is bad, it doesn't just mean the finances need attention. It means something about them, about whether they're responsible, capable, together, about whether they're the kind of person who has their life under control. That emotional loading, the sense that the bank balance is a reflection of your worth as a person, is what transforms a neutral piece of financial information into something that feels genuinely threatening to look at. And this often connects to something much earlier than adulthood. For a lot of people, money was a source of tension or shame growing up. Maybe it was never talked about, which made it feel dangerous and private. Maybe there were arguments about it, which made it feel emotionally loaded. Maybe there was scarcity, and checking how much was left was always associated with that sinking feeling of not having enough. Those early associations don't disappear when income arrives. They stay embedded in the emotional response system and get triggered every time the bank app appears on the screen. So what you're dealing with, in many cases, isn't just a habit. It's a layered response to years of emotional history with money. And approaching it like a simple discipline problem will never be enough. The practical cost of this avoidance is real and cumulative, and it's worth looking at clearly. Not to create guilt, but because understanding what it actually costs makes it easier to decide to change. When you don't look at your account regularly, spending continues without feedback. Small charges that you'd question if you saw them go unnoticed for weeks. Subscriptions that should have been canceled months ago keep quietly renewing. A fee gets charged that could have been disputed if you'd caught it in time. An automatic payment hits when the balance is low, and the overdraft fee that follows costs more than anything you actually bought that week. None of these things are catastrophic individually, but they compound. And more importantly, the absence of feedback means the absence of course correction. You can't adjust behavior in response to information you don't have. And so the month ends, the money is gone, and you still don't know exactly where it went. Which
It is a
makes the
closed
next
system.
month feel
Anxiety
just as
leads
uncertain,
directly to avoidance,
which makes
and
the
avoidance feeds
feel
back
just
into
as
anxiety.
justified.
Addressing only one
The
side
anxiety
produces
and
no
the
lasting
avoidance
change.
are feeding each other in a loop. The less you look, the worse you feel about looking. The worse you feel about looking, the less you look. Here's the shift that I think actually breaks this pattern, and it's not the one most people expect. The shift is not be braver. It's not face your fears. Those framings keep the bank account as something threatening, just something you've decided to face despite the threat. That framing doesn't remove the emotional charge, it just adds willpower on top of it. And willpower runs out. The actual shift is this: separating the number from the verdict. Your bank balance is information. That's genuinely all it is. It tells you where you currently stand so you can decide what to do next. It is not a judgment of your worth. It is not a final answer about what your financial future looks like. It is not evidence of whether you're a good person or a responsible adult, or someone who has their life together. It is just a number. And numbers can be worked with. The moment that distinction becomes real, not just intellectually understood, but emotionally felt, the account stops being something to dread and becomes something neutral. A tool, a dashboard, a starting point. And here's what's almost always true about the actual moment of looking, once someone gets there. The reality is almost never as bad as the anxiety suggested. Not always, but almost always. Because anxiety isn't calibrated to reality. It's calibrated to uncertainty. In the absence of information, the anxious mind fills the gap with the worst plausible scenario. The actual number, whatever it is at least definite. And definite things can be dealt with. It's the indefinite, the imagined, the avoided that sits inside you and grows. There's a kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying financial anxiety without ever looking at what's causing it. It's a specific weight, not the weight of the actual problem, but the weight of the not knowing, the weight of the distance between you and your own financial reality. And the strange thing about that weight is that closing the gap, actually looking, actually knowing, almost always makes it lighter. Not because the number is always good, but because known things, even hard ones, give you somewhere to stand. You can work with what you can see. You can't work with what you're avoiding. You don't have to have it figured out before you look. You don't have to be in a better place financially before it feels safe to check. The looking comes first. Everything else follows from it. It takes 11 seconds to open the app. 11 seconds to move from not knowing to knowing. And knowing, whatever it shows you, is always the better place to be. You can do 11 seconds, and that's where it starts.